sister's a therapist and I tell jokes. We both want to help all kinds of folks.
Hello, and welcome to My Sister's a Therapist. This is a show where Virginia Jones, extremely famous comedian that you haven't heard of, talks to her sister, Laura Ryan, extremely famous therapist that you've never heard of.
Hi, I'm Laura Ryan. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, but my main credit is sister to Riddle Rifle Virginia Jones.
That's the worst one that we've had in a long time. I don't know what it means. I don't like being called a gun.
Because you're just shooting out the jokes, see?
Laura, we have a special guest today and a special topic. Why don't you give us a nice introduction?
Okay. Our guest today is Courtney Orlando. She has a Master's of Science from Thomas Jefferson University. She has a Bachelor's of Science in Nursing. She's a registered nurse, Reiki master, teacher, medium, medical intuitive, integrative health science specialist. And she was the first nurse in the world to graduate with a Master's of Science degree in integrative health science. She is a published author of the book Amazing Gifts. She's a conference organizer. She's a public speaker. And today we're talking about stress.
Incredible. Courtney, hello.
Hello.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me here.
So good to meet you. So you and Laura met at a training, is that right?
Yes, she is also a neuro-emotional technique therapist like me.
That must come in handy on the bus.
It actually does. Courtney's very good at this. I've used a lot of folks for NET, and Courtney is one of my favorites.
Thanks, Laura.
Anytime. I'm going to just start out by talking a little bit about stress, and then you guys can jump in. This is from the article, What are the Impacts of Stress on the Body and Mind from the University of Florida College of Medicine. There are three main types of stress that a person experiences: acute stress, episodic stress, and chronic stress. Acute stress is short-term. Everyone faces it from time to time. It comes from a temporary challenge, like meeting a deadline or having an argument. Episodic stress is when acute stress becomes more frequent. It's harder to return to a relaxed state. People who tend to overcommit or worry constantly often experience episodic acute stress. And then chronic stress happens when someone feels stressed for weeks or even longer. It's triggered by ongoing challenges like financial problems, work issues, relationship struggles. This one is the most harmful because it causes prolonged elevation of the stress hormone cortisol, which can increase the risk of serious health problems over time.
This is super interesting because I've talked a little bit before about my science ring, a fitness tracker that's a ring.
And Is that what it's called? My science ring?
And I don't mention the brand because they haven't given me any money or any free product, but I would wink. Stress is one of the things that it tracks because it tracks my heart rate and my heart rate variation. It will give me messages like, hey, you're real stressed out. Why don't you take a minute to chill out? Why don't you take a minute to lie down? It will encourage me to meditate. You kind of know in a general way that your body and your mind are connected. But this kind of process of overanalyzing everything going on in my body has taught me how close that connection is. Stress is going to affect not just my sleep, not just my mental well-being, but it can affect my physical processes. Like you said, it can increase my cortisol. It can make it harder for me to digest. It can make it harder for me to recover from exercise. Stress is a component in heart disease, hypertension, so many things having to do with the body. We think of meditation as not being exercise, but it is.
So stress is one of my favorite topics because it's largely misunderstood. And there's a lot of different aspects to stress. So first of all, I'm glad that Laura, you brought up there's an acute stress pathway and then there's your chronic stress. Basically, if we internalize it, there's an inhibition of the stress reaction. I'm going to try to lay it out in a way that people can grab onto it because what happens is they go, okay, I'm just going to go do this for my stress. Or I do this so I'm okay, but nobody's talking about stress. One, where it's positive, because there is a positive element to stress where it challenges the body, it strengthens the body. Like we want to be stressed in exercise to a certain degree. We want to work to failure. That will strengthen the system. There's even components of trauma and unresolved stress that are good for us. They build certain character when worked with appropriately. Also, when I say to people, there's unresolved stress patterns, they go, oh, I already worked on that.
I do yoga.
For me.
I took care of that.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, oh, okay. They're misunderstanding. And I would say that's 98% of the population, at least in America.
I think it's like I had a bad moment, so then I did some yoga and then I was good.
Or I went to therapy and I'm good. What happens is when we talk about stress, we can't talk about stress without talking about the three brains. And I'm going to lay it out real quick. You've got your neocortex. That's your thinking mind. That's your linear. Then you have the mammalian brain. And this is your subconscious mind. So a little can peek through to the conscious mind. And that's non-linear.
Now, is that the caveman brain?
So it's actually, if anybody wants to, all the Google fingers out there want to get on their computer and say, that's what I call them, Google fingers. All the Google fingers.
That was my nickname in high school.
Type in vagus nerve. That's cranial nerve number 10. And when you see that, it's the largest nerve. It goes through the whole body. It contains the limbic system. But if you want to know why the mind is not separate from the brain, it's because the brain is in the body. All of it is connected. We've now upgraded from the Cartesian view of this is separate from this, and we know that we're onto systems biology. Now, traditional Chinese medicine had that figured out 4,000 years ago, but we're catching back up. So
tell me about the lizard brain.
you have the reptilian brain. And let me tell you really quick, when we get into the subconscious, I want you to know that it not only is the picture feeling, your emotions, but you also get your religious tendencies, sexuality, hormones are controlled in that area, and how we're relationship oriented. There's other things in there, but you're going to get the idea. Lots of complex sensations, complex language. The reptilian brain is our unconscious. That's your survival instinct. Plain and simple. It's going to be feeding, fleeing, flighting, reproduction. We don't ever want to get rid of the acute stress response. Why? Because if you see a lion, we don't need you to be like, how cute the lion is. Let me give you a snuggle.
If not friend, why friend shaped?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Some people can make friends with the lions, but most of us are not trained to do that. So get out, especially if he's growling at you and he's swapping.
Lunging.
Big
Things
Murder
are lunging.
paws.
That's where
lunging.
we back it up.
Yeah, please get out of the way. You don't want to get rid of that. And that's built into that system. Your hunger is actually built into that system, breathing, heart rate, all your primitive functions. What happens when we refer to unresolved stress is in the 70s, Candace Pert, she's an amazing, amazing scientist. She's no longer with us, but she is the woman who discovered the opiate receptor. What she also discovered is something called an informational substance, and that's your molecule of emotion. So what we figured out was those are made up of neurotransmitters, there's proteins, there's hormones, and they're on these substances. And what happens is in any moment, from moment of conception, most literally on in our lives, we can store some substances. Now it's nonlinear, so it doesn't always make sense. Like, why did we store that one and not that? And everybody's always looking for the big event, my traumatic event. But oftentimes that big traumatic event has an origination to that pattern.
You were talking about substances. Can you describe that?
Informational substances.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do you mean by that? What is an informational substance?
So the informational substance is your molecules of emotions. It's a molecule that is made up of different proteins, neuropeptides, biochemical things like the rest of the body is.
What I think you mean by it is this is why you might be comparing childhood experiences with a sibling. They tell you some traumatic thing that happened when you were around.
Yep.
And you're like, well, I don't remember that at all because it hasn't been stored in your body the same way it's been stored in your sibling's body.
That is a good point, Virginia. And not only that, but this part of our brain is responsible for our memory formation. So we are convinced that we remember it accurately.
Right. It's like taking a photograph. That's what we think.
But it's
Yeah.
not. Your brain is weird. It remembers things strangely.
It makes stuff up also.
Our president, who's one of the smartest men,
The most intelligent man that ever lived, probably.
he told a weird rambling story about how his uncle taught Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber at MIT, and none of it was real.
Ted Kaczynski did not attend MIT.
Right. His uncle was
Yeah.
dead and in the ground 10 years before the Unabomber was a story, but his brain has just mushed together all of his stuff.
Right.
Right.
So he thinks he remembers it.
Well,
Right.
I mean, Trump's leading the world, leading the country, leading us to heaven or hell. We can't be sure. But one thing we can't be sure about, it's a stressful position. I doubt, based on the coloring of his skin, that he eats well.
And the tumors on his hand. Have you seen that?
And it's cankles.
Regardless, it's stressful and in anybody's perception. So you'll remember even how you perceive it, which
Right.
goes even further into your 5 main personality traits that are genetically programmed, meaning the moment that your hearing turns on in the womb, you are already perceiving the world based on those 5 main personality traits, how things are. And a lot of people think I have to correct her perception.
Right.
There's a difference between a difference in perception and a difference in communication. That's
Right.
what I'm going to say there too. Subconscious and unconscious brain, mammalian, reptilian brain, are responsible for survival. That's why they're so black and white. It needs to be a black and white system. It's for survival. All this talk around self-sabotage. No, you're not. Your system's hijacked. It's hijacked with informational substances that's causing an incongruency across your 3 brains. And we can easily neutralize that. But you have to know how to use the right nonlinear, evidence-based mind-body medicine approaches. And yes, you can tailor in, like how Laura does, cognitive domains for the frontal cortex to bring greater processing. But whatever age it was that information substance stored, when that gets activated, which you're not going to always know, okay, sometimes you do and sometimes you don't, you're going to only have access to the skills you had at that age.
Right.
So when someone says, he was acting like a 2-year-old, he probably was.
Right. And forgive me, I do want to go back and dig into a couple of things because I want to bridge the gap between the regular listener who doesn't live in this world all the time, right? This division between the brain and this part is reacting is so funny to me. This is the core comedy and tragedy of what it is to be a human, because we think that we're doing all of our thinking with the neocortex. We think that we live there, we're logical,
We're rational.
and most of our decisions are based on the reptilian brain. You saw a commercial with a baby in a car tire, and now you have to buy a truck the size of a house.
Tell me about the baby in the car tire.
There was a tire ad. It was actually a print ad, and it was a baby inside a Goodyear radial tires. What if your family's life was riding on these tires? It's an appeal to your fear brain, and it's an appeal to that reptilian brain that controls most of what we do.
Right.
Marketing knows that. That's why the news and marketing, I'm not downing them. I'm just saying religious organizations.
They've figured out how
if
what
they
works.
want your money, right? Look at the crying baby and the suffering.
Yeah.
It's going to gear up your emotions to trigger off anything from that zone. And by the way, you're not going to win. I tell people it's 2/3 of your being as a human between the reptilian and your mammalian. You're going to stress yourself out.
Right.
You're going to end up with a heart attack. You're going to compensate and you're going to end up with adrenal fatigue. And you're going to end up with a fat belly.
Is that where I got it?
Could be.
This is so correct, Courtney, that we think that we can outthink the information that's given to us, that we can out-clever it. But every clickbait headline, everything fed to us is trying to speak to fear. Our political parties, they've had success speaking to fear, so they push this button all the time. We talked about this recently, how each political party wants to leave you going to the ballot box with the understanding and the idea and the knowledge, if the other party wins, we're all going to die.
It's the end of the world.
Look, we've come closer than we ever have been.
We're there right now.
I'm experiencing this with a lot of friends and acquaintances as adrenal burnout. Like, how are you doing? And they're like, I'm getting by under the circumstances. You can't live in this place. It's not going to make your life good, which is not to say you should disconnect from everything happening around you, but you can't entirely live in this place of reptilian brain fear. To be a little more granular about my science ring, the physiological impacts of stress are extensive and affect cardiovascular and respiratory system. You can increase your blood pressure. Like Courtney said, increasing cortisol, which can cause your heart to beat faster and narrow your blood vessels. Increased breathing rate. Your breathing can quicken to supply more oxygen to your muscles, because your reptilian brain and your mammalian brain is like, I might have to run from a tiger. I might have to climb this cliff. But that's not what's happening. You are in an office talking with your boss about your job performance. There's not a lion. There's not a cliff. Increased risk of heart disease. Chronic stress can keep your blood pressure elevated for long periods, raising the risk of heart disease, heart attacks, or strokes. When stress persists, The prolonged release of cortisol and other stress hormones can suppress the immune response, leaving you more vulnerable to infections and slowing down your recovering time. Over time, this weakened immune state increases the risk of both acute illnesses and chronic conditions. So exactly what Courtney was telling us, stress is a holistic issue. It affects the body, it affects the mind, and it affects your health in a very real way.
So let me tell you guys about the digestive system. This is from the same article. Have you ever felt a sudden case of nerves before a big work meeting or job interview? Maybe you've experienced butterflies that turned into an impromptu trip to the bathroom. God knows I have. Whatever the trigger, stress can wreak temporary havoc on your digestive system in many ways, causing gastrointestinal issues like IBS or acid reflux. It may also impact your appetite, causing you to overeat or lose your appetite altogether. When you are stressed, your muscles become tense. During short-term acute stress, this tension dissipates once the stressor is gone. However, chronic stress can leave your muscles in a constant state of tightness, leading to headaches, back pain, and worsening of conditions like fibromyalgia.
When people say, when you touch my hand, I got butterflies in my stomach, that means they got the poops.
They had IBS.
Baby, I love you so much. I have to poop immediately.
This is something that I always try to point out to people. When they're talking about falling in love, they're talking about feeling super stressed.
That will depend on your relationship with love and the origination of your caretakers. So everybody wants to go, I want these things. It happens. This is how it gets affected, by the way, is that consciously we want to be loved. Consciously, we want to give and receive love and we want it to be healthy. Almost every conscious mind wants that. But subconsciously, if your body has stored an informational substance that it's incongruent. So you grew up with caretakers who maybe even they were good caretakers, but what if they didn't meet your emotional needs? So you always felt hungry and unloved. There's all sorts of reasons. The parents really could show up and do the best they could have, but the child could have perceived it as my needs are not being met. There doesn't always have to be this great trauma. You've got PTSD for children and adults that were abused, but there's going to be a hijacking. If you had a manipulative parent, for instance, or a manipulative caretaker, because it doesn't always come from the parent. We always want to blame the parent.
A lot of times it's the older sister.
It could be the older sister. Hey, I've had that come up a lot, especially in bigger families in my NET sessions, where the body stored it because they revered them, or my older cousin or a grandparent. You have external events that can be stressful, and it can be perceived stress. It doesn't have to be real. Perceived. That's external events, physical, social, environmental. You've got internal stress. Your internal stress are your thoughts, emotions, pain. What do you have in the middle of that is your brain, nervous system, cardiovascular, digestive system, immune system, musculoskeletal system. And you've got the squish going on there, or the messaging going on there. And that initial system will take place in certain areas of the brain that rule that acute response. And then after that, what happens is if it's not mindful mediated, if we don't have some of these techniques, anything from MBSR meditation techniques to NET to EMDR, hypnotherapy, seriously, breath work, different things that we're doing that really help to give us what's called functional connectivity. And I just want you to think of functional connectivity as my brain is completely connected and everything's talking and translating just right in alignment with my actual aliveness. And I can turn on my parasympathetic, which is my just relax, we can do this. You're not going to die. And I can actually turn that on, not just with my thoughts, but with my breath. So there'll be possible arousal, but also an awareness of body, awareness of sensation. And then also the ability to practice seeing the full context. Because a lot of times when we see things, that perception, not only is it, oh, here it is again, this is my cross to bear, I knew it. And we're a victim to our own charges. A professor, when I was in my undergrad, said something and I loved it. I'll never forget when she said it. You see what you know. So as soon as you decide that this is what I know, or it's imprinted in your judgments, or what you want it to be. How many times do we get in a relationship and we're like, no, he's it, or she's it. Your brain is trying to pick up and even manipulate.
You're sorting information
to fit your narrative. You don't mean to be doing it. This is a deep desire for you. I'm not shaming anybody for doing it. It's an automatic response.
We love to find patterns and we love to find information that corroborates what we already think. It's just how we're wired. What I hear you saying, Courtney, is that going for a long walk is not going to solve everything. Laura, what are your thoughts on this?
Why don't you tell me a little bit about impacts of stress on mental health? Because we've talked about the body, but I want to just talk about the mind real quick.
Chronic stress can also take a toll on your mental health, causing issues like anxiety disorders, depression, general burnout, difficulty concentrating. And Laura and I have talked about this. Stress keeps you from operating in your higher mind. Right. If you are consistently stressed by your relationship, by money, by your living situation, you literally cannot make good decisions because your mind and your emotional system is being hijacked by that stress, which I think Courtney spoke to a little bit.
And so I'm going to just talk quickly about the impact of stress on your mental health. Vanessa Racine. Stress has a psychological impact that can manifest as irritability or aggression, a feeling of loss of control, insomnia, fatigue or exhaustion, sadness or tears, concentration or memory problems, and continued stress can lead to other problems like depression, anxiety, or burnout.
From the people you talk to, from the people you work with, from the people in your day-to-day life, this article says more than a quarter of U.S. adults say they're so stressed they can't function. I would say it's more than that. 76% of adults reported they had experienced at least one symptom in the past month as a result of stress. Headache, 38%, fatigue, 35%, feeling nervous or anxious, 34%, feeling depressed or sad, 33%. 7 in 10 adults experience additional symptoms, including feeling overwhelmed, experiencing changes in sleeping habits, or just worrying constantly. Courtney, how do we get out of this cycle of stress? When you realize that you're becoming stressed, that when you are becoming hijacked, when your brains are not cooperating, how can we get out of it?
I think there's 2 approaches that we need to talk about, because there are the proactive approaches that we need to engage in. Those are your mind-body modalities that we talk about, evidence-based that we can use. And what you want to help the body do is to move from reactivity to the ability to respond. I tell people, take the parasympathetic breath. Your breath is faster than any benzo you can throw in your mouth. I understand that
you don't have enough benzos, it sounds like.
This is what people have to remember. So many people are in this perception that it's in the drug or it's out there and I don't have access to it. No, you haven't learned how to access what's already in your body.
Because all that drugs are doing is releasing the drugs you already made.
Or it's shutting it down and then causing emotional repression, which is actually worse for the body. You're going to get sicker sooner. And trust me, it will turn on those responses. So all those high blood pressure, arrhythmias, sleep disorders, all that, it's the things you're talking about. Then the next phase is maladaptive coping. That's your self-destruction, including overworking, which we're often praised for, and overeating, which our restaurants love you to do, is actually part of a maladaptive coping skill that we are like, what do you mean? It's normalized. Then you've got your substance dependencies, and that includes socially acceptable substances to those that we like to heighten. I call it the hierarchy of addiction. Everybody's pointing out who's addicted to what and who's worse. If you're down there, you got chronic stress that's in your body. Let's go deal with it and stop with the judgment. That's called deflecting, my friends. So 75% of what is expressed as far as disease and everything else in our body is controlled by our lifestyle, including what you just asked me, Virginia, which was, hey, what can we do? We have the neuro-emotional technique. Everybody loves to throw around mindfulness. Cut it out. Most people don't even know what it actually is. Mindfulness-based stress reduction. We've got Reiki. Reiki is a evidence-based energy medicine technique. You have breath work, and there's tons of different types of breath work. Certain of these providers don't have to have certain credentialing, and so there's a lot of anything goes.
Yeah.
Would you please look up your providers' bios? I'm really big on that, because there's a lot of, and I'm just going to say it out loud, there's a lot of idiots and there's a lot of cons out there. And there's a lot of people that do not know what they're actually talking about. And then it just sounds good because they heard it on TikTok.
And you're saying that my little boo-boo addiction is not the answer.
I think your Labubu addiction, it's an answer.
How about goat yoga? Is that something?
Yoga is something. Actually, yoga is on there. Tai Chi is on there as another modality. Also, spiritual connectedness. So spiritual experiences can be healing. Again, we have to be
being in
careful.
nature, I think, is a spiritual
Nature,
experience,
right? So nature and the grounding. Can
TikTok will
everybody?
shorten it to touch grass.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Also, everybody forgets our integrative nutrition. If you're not functioning right on a biochemical level and your cellular health is pure, your connectivity, no matter what you do, isn't going to hit. Same with your
so living off
energetic
of
body.
Cheetos isn't the move?
It's not the
Cheeto
move.
Oreo based diet? No.
No, that's the hijacking of what's called the motivational triad, which the food and farm companies are great at hacking. And that's called seek pleasure, avoid pain, and do it in the most efficient manner possible.
Mhm.
Reptilian programming, you're not going to beat it. If you know how to work with that, that's why when I work with clients, when it comes to integrative nutrition and lifestyle medicine, I'm going to downregulate anything that's incongruent through NET and some Reiki, but then I'm going to also teach you how to make it easy. If I don't make it easy and I don't make it fun, you're going to fail, which is what the diet industry hopes you do.
Yes.
Over and over again.
Over and over again.
The
Okay,
Women's
right.
Day magazine in the 80s is the perfect example of this. Here's a page of a hyper processed food
Mhm.
that you
Yeah.
can make. The next page is a diet. You mentioned Reiki.
Mhm.
Courtney, isn't that the thing where people wave their hands over their body and there's auras? What is that?
And there's auras and stuff.
Reiki is actually a Japanese energy medicine modality. So it's Japanese energy medicine. That's where it stems from. Dr. Yusui. It's basically the use of source energy, just like Chinese meridian lines or acupuncture. You're working the meridian lines and you're dealing with ki or chi, some people call it. It's a life force energy. This is very known in Eastern medicine. So you're working with that. You're working across the entire body and all the systems, including your energy fields. You're not even touching the body. You have to be trained and certified, attuned appropriately. Anybody can go wave and you're like, what are they doing? They look like an idiot. I can wave too. But there was actually, in some of the studies done, there is a significant difference between when a Reiki master was doing the modality on a patient pre and post surgery and what their healing outcomes were versus they called it a dummy Reiki person, meaning they were going in and they were not certified in any way. And of course, the patient wasn't allowed to know that for study purposes, for control. And there was a significant difference.
I went to go see Laurie Anderson, who's a performance artist, and she's been a big influencer on me. And she was married to Lou Reed, who people know from the Velvet Underground and Walk on the Wild Side and whatnot. The last 30 years of his life, Lou Reed was super into Tai Chi. And that was the only thing he was concerned with and the only thing he wanted to talk about. I went to go see a Laurie Anderson show. She said, and that's all we have to perform for you. And I was like, oh, well, that's it. That's the show. And then everybody was clapping for an encore. I'm like, she just said that's all we're going to do. She told us there's no encore. She came back out and she said, let's just do some Tai Chi. And so she had the whole audience stand up, sold out show, and she led us through some movements. We walked out into the night feeling so connected and calm and feeling so amazing. It was like mass hypnosis. It was really incredible.
It was mass hypnosis.
Right. What I'm saying is Laurie Anderson is really incredible. Lou Reed wrote a book about Tai Chi. I tried to read it. Courtney, how can you tell in the moment in front of a stressor if your reaction is a panic reaction, a bad reaction?
Is it adaptive or maladaptive? I think.
Yes.
I love that question, actually. Reactivity is, first of all, we're going to feel it in our body. There's going to be a tension in the body. If you paid attention to your heart rate, it's going to be up a little bit. You're going to feel a rise up in your emotions, and the thoughts will be moving quicker. Sometimes the thoughts will freeze. So you might go non-thinking and non-emotive where you go, no, I don't feel anything, because you literally disconnect altogether. There's no way you're not feeling it in the body. And especially listen if you're reasoning your behavior. So say you do have access to thought and you start reasoning and defending the behavior, you're reacting.
You're justifying your reptilian response.
Yeah, because you can add logic to it. Here's a nice, quick way to turn off and hack that system along with the breath. And It's a mindfulness technique called pause, release, and open. That's how you become a pro. Pause, release, open. So in that pause, literally just take a 30-second pause if you can. Even if it's 20 seconds, take it. It's all it is. You got to practice. At first, we're still, but if you consciously intend to practice it, you can use higher charged and lesser charged events to just begin to practice it. And so pause, just check in. Who cares if you're right or wrong? Just you're having a quick check-in. So it's just a pause, a choiceless awareness, it's called. 20 seconds, you're not going to make any choices. You heard your choices. You're not making them wrong or bad. You're just going to put them over there for a second. And then you take the breath. So open, and you open with the breath. And when you take this breath, I recommend that you take it in through the nose. You hold it at the top for about 4 seconds, and you breathe out the mouth with a pierced lip. Like I just smoked a cigarette and I'm going, that's why smoking
Feels
cigarettes
so
is-
good. That's why
feels
smoking
so good.
cigarettes is very effective.
Because you're all taking parasympathetic breaths with the nicotine. That's what's happening. When you breathe that out like that. And you want to breathe out longer than you breathe in. That's what's going to turn that on. So you're breathing out longer than in. And then you take about 3 to 5 of those if you can. You can also do what's called the fast technique, which I can't show people. People would need to see me for the fast technique.
I think even if you just grabbed your wrist and put your head on your forehead.
Yeah, if you grab your wrist where your pulse is and you put it straight across your forehead and then lean a little forward and do that breathing.
Yeah.
Within seconds, you're going to feel better. Your functional connectivity is going to be up. That's called the FAST, F-A-S-T, all capital technique. And also when you open, here's a kicker. It shifts your reticular activating system. So not just with the breath, but you say, I'm going to get into the beginner's mind, it's called. I'm not going to make myself wrong or untrue over here, but I'm also going to open to a new experience and a healthy experience. Not only are you opening the reticular activating system and the energy world, that's a way to shift your energy so that it turns off that old pathway, but also attracts in new possibilities. It's the beginner's mind.
Those are some awesome tips. I can tell you that if you are in front of someone who is trying to activate you and is trying to get you dysregulated, pausing 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and quietly taking that moment for yourself really freaks them out.
Yes.
I can only imagine the level of freak out if I put my fingers to my pulse and put my head on my hand.
Well, you say, I got to go to the bathroom. If you're right in front of them, say you don't want them to know, and you're just taking the breath, you do something called shifting awareness, and it brings you into the body. It's not I'm going to go out of the body technique.
What do I hear?
That's right.
Yeah.
And you keep telling yourself, I am safe. You're listening to them, but you kind of mute that out. So you shift away from sound and you just go, oh, the wall is white. I am safe. Internally, you can just say it internally. Feel the temperature on your skin.
Right.
It's a hack to bring you into the present moment.
The forced mindfulness to ground yourself. Yes.
It's a grounding technique. It's a safety technique. And once you're in that, we're not giving you a lobotomy. It doesn't mean you're not upset about what's happening. It doesn't mean you don't have any feelings. What it means is you can access all of you, including if you have done therapy with wonderful people like Laura, and you want to be able to make that work for you and access it. That's where people get frustrated. Well, I've done all this work. Yeah, because you're still in a reactivity.
You're still a person. That's
And
what I
you're
always tell people. They're like, well, why am I still getting upset when my mom screams in my face? Well, because you're still a human.
I know. You're going to be upset, but what you want to be able to do is to be able to work with it. Stress is part of the human experience. Reactivity is part of the human experience. Also, get your mindset shift. So I love growth mindset. It's also another evidence-based technique. People talk about fear is a lower vibration and love is the highest. Well, not if your relationship with it is good or poor. What is your relationship with these things? What's your mindset around it? What's your limiting beliefs? Anger is one of the most misunderstood. When you are on the process of acceptance, which is a crucial and critical mindfulness base as a foundation of simply, it's the preconditions we need for healing. You have acceptance, and we're talking about the attitudinal foundation of acceptance. What do you need? What's the natural process? It's denial, anger, then you meet acceptance. So if every time you get to anger, you don't learn how to respond or you block it off, one, it's going to store in your wood meridian line and those organs that are connected with it. And second, you're never going to finish your process. you're going to get stuck. You're going to keep looping, and that's going to cause a chronic stress and inhibition response in and of itself. So what's your relationship with anger, and how do we work with anger?
As famous musician and butter salesman said, John Lydon, anger is an energy.
Did you say
It
butter
is.
salesman?
Yeah, he has done a series of terrible old man British butter ads that have drained any remaining punk rock out of his body.
What are your final thoughts on this very, very interesting topic that Courtney has brought to us?
Clearly, Courtney, we could do a series just on this. We could speak a book into a microphone. You are a font of knowledge and really interesting connective tissue here. My biggest takeaway is just the reiteration that not only are you feeling badly under stress, but you are hurting your life. You're hurting your existence. It's going to serve you well to learn how to process it and manage it, and not just reptilian react, put a bunch of donuts in the hole, to look for the next step to improve your life and to manage these feelings.
Yeah.
Laura, what are your final thoughts?
I always love talking to Courtney because it's sort of like getting a fire hose of
Information, just injections of a ton of information and data. Yeah.
Right. And so I'm going to really enjoy editing this episode because
We're going to learn a lot. Once we listen to it a couple
over
times.
and over and over, I'm going to have it really down. My final thoughts are I'm being told I can't eat Cheetos anymore, which is irritating.
Picking up that vibe.
Well, very stressful. I want my Cheetos.
I do want my Cheetos.
How can we build that in?
How can that become adaptive?
We're going to work on it.
You're reminding me of, I had a very unpleasant experience with someone recently, and I got very dysregulated, and I was so mad at that person and also to myself. I always go to the Buddhist ideal that whoever angers you controls you, and I don't want to be controlled by anybody. But I didn't manage it well. I did eat Cheetos, and I did just watch Downton Abbey and ignore everything. I found that for me, a lot of my stress coping strategies are processing with others. So I have to auditorily process. The next day, when someone had time to talk to me about it, I was able to sort of offload a lot of the information and feel more calm. We all have to figure out our own ways to get there. Something I didn't include in what we were talking about earlier was the top 10 most stressed cities in the United States. Number 1 is Detroit. And I'm just going to tell you a couple things about Detroit. They have the highest poverty rate in our country. They have the lowest median credit score, and they have a lot of family problems. They have the second highest separation and divorce rate in the country, and the highest share of single parent households. They have a high obesity rate. They have a lot of violent crime. So I guess my thought is, if you're in Detroit, apologies, but I do feel like there are chronic things that are happening to us all the time, but I think it's about how I deal with it. If I'm feeling a financial stressor, I need to go breathe, because worrying about the financial stressor is not going to make the financial stressor go away, but it is going to negatively impact my body. And I think that's part of it, is thinking about how all the systems are connected. This is what you find out when you have a big stressor. You think that this thing matters, and then later you've even forgot what the thing was. You just remember what happened in your body.
You're just carrying the stress, and you're like, where does this come from?
What is this thing? Doing breathing techniques, doing the fast technique, and just trying to figure stuff out. Courtney, what are your final thoughts on this wonderful topic that you brought?
I think that it's an invitation really to consider that when it comes to stress and unresolved stress patterns, two different things, I think that we get to know that it's pretty multidimensional topic. There is the support today. I want people to take away the hope, because I think that it's important to know that when we talk about, all these bad things happen to your body, blah, 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 blah. And when we get in good relationship with it and we start getting in contact, and people can go on my website, contact me. I do sessions. I can't do NET, not in person, but I do all the other sessions virtually.
You can do NET in person. That's what
I can do it in person, but I can't do it on
virtually. Yeah.
Virtually, but I can do all the other modalities there, or knowing people like Laura, or listening to my Sister's a Therapist podcast.
Hey, thanks, bro.
Knowing people that can connect and getting down with that in your local community. If you're alive, you have access to the breath. Let's start there.
Yeah.
As long as you can move, you have access to things like exercise that release myokines and molecules of hope. We have access to food. Even when it's poor, there's ways that we can work that. There's tons of solutions out there. if we're willing to get out of our own way, if we're willing to release some of our limiting beliefs, there's tons of solution-based things. They can be expensive and they can be really cheap. Like I can take a breath for free.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank God. Because they started charging us
For now.
water.
For
But
now.
that's what I mean. We've
Who
got
knows for how long? Go outside, get as much air in your lungs
Get all
as
the free air you can.
because we don't know how long we're going to have it.
fear techniques. But the
Yes.
takeaway is basically, listen, there's solutions to this. There's people that can educate you on the multidimensionality of you and of stress, how to work it for you, how to downregulate it, and how to change your relationship with it and yourself. And that's the bottom line, I think.
That's excellent. So, Courtney, you mentioned your website. Can you share with our listeners how to find you on the interwebs?
Yes. So you can go to nodalpointenergywork.com. That is where you'll find my website. You can also find me on Instagram with Nodal Point Energy Works and Facebook as well. You can email us on our business line. Does text. Don't text me if you're not serious. Nodal is Nodal. All the information is there. I am very quick to respond within usually 24 to 48 hours if you email me or text.
Okay.
But don't text that business number if you've not looked at the site
I think I'm just going to text the business number right now.
right
Give
now.
me that business number.
What?
Let me
I'm
tell
going
you
to
a
just
quick
start
fact.
trolling Courtney.
Hey, I mentioned this when I was on a psychic story podcast, and
Yes.
people took me up on it and they couldn't believe that I actually answered. I'm like, yeah, it's me.
That's
So many
legit.
people are used to like automated responses.
Right.
Like,
It's
I'm
me.
here.
Here I am.
She's putting the personality into customer
I
service.
don't have a secretary or an answering service
Not yet. Not yet.
But one day I will.
One day. Virginia, if somebody wants to find out about your comedy, how would they go about doing that?
You can check me out at my website, www.bedinia.com. And I wish you would. I put a lot of stupid crap on there. That's also my Instagram and my TikTok. Laura, where can people find you on the internet? And more additionally, where can they find out more about the podcast?
They can go to my TikTok account. I am Laura Ryan. If they want to find out dumb things about my political beliefs. If you're interested in working with me professionally, you can find me at lauraryan.org. If you are interested in our podcast, you can go to our Instagram, My Sister's a Therapist Instagram. Or if you want to just listen to all the episodes in one go, you can go to mysistersatherapist.com, our website. Also, if you want to find out more about Courtney or have questions about how to spell nodal, you can email us at hello@mysistersatherapist.com.
And if you did want to listen to all of our podcasts, you're going to be in for a great 3 days. You can do it. They're short. You don't need to sleep. Just get some Cheetos, sit down, listen to 85 episodes of My Sister's a Therapist.
93, girl. Come on.
Wow.
Catch up. Laura, now is the time of the show where you sometimes read a review or a comment or an email that someone has been kind enough to send us. And the people who do write us reviews are our very favorite people.
They're the best people.
Do you have one to share this week?
I certainly do. I also want to encourage anyone who's listening to we're going in full MLM, tell 3 friends, family members, or strangers about our podcast. We really appreciate it. Also, if you want to give us money, you can email us at hireus@mysistersatherapist.com. We'll take your money. If you want someone to promote your mouthwash,
Car wash?
hair wash, let us know. I got an email from Kay, and Kay said, I loved the Brandy Posey episode. I just listened to your aphantasia episode, and although I am not super visual, I have maladaptive daydreams, and I'm most likely autistic. Your podcast made me realize I can taste food and smell with my imagination too. This is probably why when I crave food, I crave it on another level. Thank you, Kay. That's really cool.
Wow.
Don't eat Cheetos, Kay. Courtney says you can't.
Last night, we headed out to a goth bicycle ride, which is 400 or 500 goths on bikes, riding through the night. And beforehand, my partner powered up with a Crunch Wrap. And as he was eating it, it had hot Cheetos in it. And I said, you know what? That's going to be approved by my nephew. That's fine cuisine.
It really is. I'm just thinking about the acid reflux that he's going to enjoy when he
Oh
lays
my
down
God.
tonight.
Yes. Thank you again for joining us, Courtney. It's been so interesting to talk to you and so great
Always
to
a
meet you.
delight. It's
Always a delight. We want to encourage our listeners to check out your website and check out your contributions to
Pretty much everything. The world of
Planet.
publishing.
Amazing Gifts by Mark Pinsky and Let All the Children Come by Phyllis
You got that is my old stuff for my, should I say, my Courtney Christ days? No, but
Courtney Christ. I know her.
we edit it out.
As we wind down, we want to thank everybody for listening and remind you of the words of our founder, Billy Ray Valentine, Capricorn. As he said, we can make it, baby.
Me and you.
Bye-bye.